Now we've looked at some of the different areas of digital marketing, we want to fit those areas into a marketing model. So let's take a look at some digital marketing models. The marketing model that we're going to use for this introduction to digital marketing is called the SOSTAC framework. The reason it's called SOSTAC is because each of the different areas, there are 6, if you take the first letter of each of those, you get an acronym which adds up to SOSTAC. So that's situation, objectives, strategy, tactics, action, and control. Now, when you put all these 6 areas together, you're going to come up with quite a comprehensive digital marketing strategy that you can put into action. There are other digital marketing frameworks out there, such as the PESO model, and other ones that you might well know yourself, but we're going to concentrate on the SOSTAC framework here. So we'll take a look at each of these in turn, and then together they add up to a cohesive strategy for you. So here's an example of each area and also a definition of what they mean. So we'll start with situation, which is providing an overview of external and internal factors that impact your organization. So that might be a SWOT analysis, where you look at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats to do your organization. It could be user personas, where you develop an audience in mind and give them a personality to kind of flesh out who your target audience is. And many other methods to kind of get a situational analysis of how digital looks for your organization. Next, you're going to want to set objectives. Now we're going to emphasize SMART objectives, which are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. And we'll look at that in more detail about how you can set digital marketing objectives. Here is an example we've put. We want to recruit 2,000 regular givers in the next 4 months. That's just an example and will help you develop those objectives as we look at that section. Next is the actual strategy. What are you going to do to achieve those objectives given the situation that your organization is in? So to do that, you're going to have to identify which segments of the market, your potential audience, that will be targeted in the strategy. So for example, here we've said this charity is going to focus on younger beneficiaries. Of course, it'd be a lot more developed than that, but this is just an example. Next are the tactics. What specific tools and activity are you going to do that will support you in your digital marketing objectives? So for example, are you going to use a scheduling app to plan your content? You could use a tool like Hootsuite or Buffer to actually plan out what you're going to post and when. Next is the actions. How would that strategy be delivered in practice? What channels will be used? For example, you're going to use Facebook and Instagram, or we use other social media channels or email. How are you actually going to do it? That's where actions comes in. Lastly, we look at control, which essentially is measurement. It's the final stage and it's how we monitor and measure performance based on the objectives that you've set. The beauty of digital marketing is that everything can be measured. Most things can be measured anyway. And so actually there's no excuse not to track the impact or the activity that you're doing. So control, although it comes last, is perhaps the most important. So for example, on a simple basis, measuring how you're going to get 2,000 regular givers recruited in 4 months could be quite straightforward and will tell you whether you've achieved your goals or not. So putting all those together, you get the SOSTAC model. And we're going to help you walk through each of those areas again and give you more of an idea about how you can build each of those out. So here are the 6 areas. We'll start with situation and we'll work through each of these in the next lessons. To help with identifying the situation of your organization, it can be really handy to develop what's called a user persona. A user persona is essentially a fleshed out model, a fleshed out figure of who your target audience is. Now you can create multiple user personas if your organization has multiple target audiences. And here we've listed some of the questions that you might ask to develop your user persona. So how old is the audience that you're trying to reach? Where do they live? Is it in a city or is it in a rural area? What do they like to do in their free time? And what other brands might they use as part of their everyday activity? What are their hobbies and interests? What do they get up to in their spare time? And what do they care about? Really important when it comes to a charity. Now you want to give them a name as well that has something to do with the type of person they are. And also you want to use a photo so you can really picture them in your mind. And we've actually taken these images from a website called This Person Does Not Exist, which uses AI to generate fake people that you can use. So have a look at This Person Does Not Exist if you're struggling for where to find good images of people. So taking that user persona and these questions, the photos, we're going to go and actually show you what one looks like. So here we've created a user persona which allows us to have someone in our mind that we can craft content for, that we can publish content for, to make sure that whatever we're publishing on our digital marketing channels meets the needs of this person. So we've got a lovely photo of her. Her name is Debbie Digital because she's a digital worker at a charity. And yeah, this just really helps it stick in our mind if you give her a name. So the demographics is the first section that we assign to them. So she's aged between 30 and 45. She has medium level of income and she has a master's level of education. So again, you can see how the demographics begins to flesh out what your target audience looks like. What challenges does Debbie face in her work, and how can our charity organisation help her overcome those challenges? So as she works in a charity already, and she works in a digital impact team, she wants to must be able to demonstrate that impact as part of her job. And because of that, she's accountable to multiple stakeholders, both in her organisation and partner organisations as well. And then she's accountable to the senior leadership team, who ultimately she reports to and needs to prove the impact of her work. Now we want to understand her needs in the next section. What does Debbie Digital need from us? So she wants to understand how our charity delivers change. She wants to clearly understand our charity's unique proposition, and she wants to demonstrate the value of our charity to decision makers. So here we're saying, oh, she's going to partner with us, or she's interested in what our charity does. This is what we need to communicate to her through our digital marketing so that she understands. To help with that, we've got a behavioural section so we understand what Debbie does. So she works for an environment charity, so she's focused on environmental and sustainability issues, but she will work in an organisation that covers multiple industries. So her charity is outside of just sustainability. She's passionate about her work and those that her organisation supports. So she brings passion, and we might have to match that passion with the content that we create. She keeps on top of current events and is active on social media. So there's a tip there. We might well use social media to reach her. But she also reads in-depth articles about subject areas she's interested in and works on, so we might want to create blog content to help her reach that. Now, I would recommend creating multiple personas, say between 2 and 3. It depends on how many target audiences you have, but try and make one user persona for each target audience that you have. Flesh them out using this model. We'll give you an editable version of this user persona. And yeah, give it a go, create it, and it'll be so valuable when you come to create content to keep these different user personas in mind. That's a little bit around the situation. Now let's move on to objectives and actually work out how we're going to engage with the likes of Debbie Digital. Now, when developing objectives, we want to make sure that we use SMART objectives. Again, that's another acronym like SOSTAC. This time, SMART means specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. Now, we're going to take you through some examples that fit each of those, but let's have a look at each one in turn. So specific means you probably want to use an exact figure that will help you know if you've achieved your goal or not. So we want to achieve 10 donors, for example. But for that to happen, it needs to be measurable, the second circle here. So if we want to achieve 10 donors, then we need to make sure that we can measure how many donors we get through our website. Should be fairly straightforward. Actionable, we actually have to be able to do something. So we actually have to be able to do some digital marketing activity in order to achieve that goal. It's no good being theoretical, we actually need to take action. Now, it needs to be realistic as well. We could have said 10,000 donors, but that might not be realistic given our charity's resources. So we'll start at a lower figure that we can hit and it's realistic. Next is time bound. We need to get those donors in a specific time frame, otherwise we won't have the pressure of a deadline. So we want to achieve this by the end of the year, for example. So we want to achieve, putting it all together, we want to recruit 10 donors using our digital marketing channels by the end of the year. You can see how you can start to fit together a SMART objective there. So let's take a look to make it more concrete at a few examples. So here we've got two choices. Which objective is SMART? The first one, where we're going to send lots of tweets about our charity as soon as possible. Or we're going to publish at least 5 tweets about our new fundraising project, targeting Digital Debbie, there's our user persona, by the 1st of November 2020. So you can see how it's specific, the second one. It's got 5 tweets there, specific number. It's measurable, so we can actually measure how many tweets we're going to publish. It's achievable. 5 tweets should be doable by the 1st of November. It's realistic. We can do this. It's not 50. It's not 50,000. It's 5 tweets, and it's time bound. So we can do this by 1st November 2020. So here, hopefully, you can see the obvious difference and why a SMART objective is much better to aim for. Let's give it another go. So the first objective that we set is to convert leads every day to get new supporters. Or we're going to convert 33% of email-driven leads into supporters within 30 days of initial contact via a cross-channel marketing campaign. I hope it's fairly obvious that the second one is a SMART objective there. It's specific. We have 33% of email-driven leads. It's measurable, so we are measuring people coming from email marketing through to our website. It's achievable, so we think, based upon our data, that a conversion rate of 33% is possible. It's realistic, so we've given ourselves enough room to achieve that. We're not trying to demand too much of ourselves. And it's time bound. We want to do this within 30 days of the initial contact. So you can see here how SMART objectives are really handy and help you to focus your digital marketing activity. And then when you come to measure and look back, you can see whether you've achieved it or not. Whereas the first example here would be very hard to measure, very hard to see how you've actually done that. To help with this and help setting SMART objectives, it can be handy to split out your goals and objectives. And what I wanted to do was give you a few examples of the different types of measurement you might be doing, just so you're not getting confused about what's a goal, an objective, or a metric. So let's break it down. Starting with goals at the top, our overall goal, so from our digital marketing activity, overall goal of what we want to do is increase donations for our charity by 10%. That's the overall goal. In order to achieve that, we're going to set several objectives through our digital marketing activity. The first one is to run an online campaign targeting digital debit, and we're going to do that by increasing website traffic by 35%. Now, I've realized that this is not a SMART objective, so I'm going to need to add in a time-bound element there. So we want to increase website traffic by 35% by the end of 2020, for example. Lastly, these are the metrics that we're going to use in order to see if we've achieved the objective or not. So we want the total number of donations needs to be 10%. Total donation revenue as well, as we want to know if the revenue's increased by 10% as well. And that website traffic, has it increased by 35% or not? Maybe others that you're looking at are measuring, but ultimately we want these core metrics which help us inform us if we've met those objectives, which then tells us if we've reached our goal or not. So that's an idea to tell you that objectives, goals, and metrics are different. Here's how you might split them out.